So we are going to make our whistle, and we're going to start with a round ball of clay. So this is some of the clay that I had often set back into the bag from making our clay ruler. So if I take this clay, and this is quite a bit of clay, I'll just go ahead and take it and fold it together, and I'm just going to work it in the palms of my hand and start getting this into the shape of a ball. The amount or size of your clay is going to indicate the sound of your whistle. So the larger the cavity, then the deeper or lower the sound or the tone of your whistle. So right here I have one that is already firming up. I'll go ahead and, so as you can see, this is a bit smaller than the piece of clay I have now. So thinking about the smaller that this gets, then the sound is going, or the pitch will be higher. Okay, so I'll just set that out of the way. So coming back to our piece of clay, remembering having something down on your tabletop. So if you don't have a piece of canvas, remember maybe an old cloth, t-shirt, plastic placemat, something of that sort. So right now I'm just really trying to get this into a nice ball without a lot of creases or folds on the surface. So just having a nice smooth ball to begin with. So now I want to have us think about when we watched the video on Maria Martinez and how she was working with pinching. So that's exactly what we're going to do. I'm going to hold the ball in my left hand, I'm right hand. So I'm supporting it with my left hand, and I'm just going to go ahead and press my thumb down inside, but not all the way through. So having this on the end of my thumb, supporting with my left hand. And now I'm going to slowly pinch and rotate. So I'm rotating the clay in my left hand and pinching as I go. So ideally, as I'm pinching and turning this ball of clay, I'm thinking about the bottom, so looking inside. So thinking about the bottom and how thick that bottom is. So I'm thinking about 1/4 of an inch. I want to imagine if I have about 1/4 of an inch for the bottom. Of course, that's hard to see. So if we're at a 1/2 inch, how thick could that bottom be in the bottom of my whistle, as well as my wall? So now I'm trying to rotate the clay, pinching, and trying to get a consistency of 1/4 inch thick for the walls as well. So the goal is 1/4 inch thick for all sides, the bottom and the walls. So right now, as you can see when I turn this, sorry, I'm trying to figure out this camera, it's a little bit thicker on this side than the other. So I'm wanting to come back then and gently pinch the clay and continue to rotate. Again, working toward consistency on all sides. Okay, so right now I have this shape, and the next step that I want to about this is our chamber. This is the hollow that we're creating, and we're going to be working toward now pinching everything toward this other end to pinch it closed. So as I am pinching the clay now, I am changing the direction. So bringing this other end back toward itself. Sorry, I'm still struggling a little bit with this camera. Hopefully this will work. Okay, pinching this toward itself because we want to be working it back in. So that eventually we're closing this off. And notice as I'm supporting with my left hand, my left fingers can even begin to help guide and support. So everything is coming toward the right side and beginning to close up. Okay, so it's not going to be very pretty as we close it up. You could even consider this being your mouthpiece if you wanted to, but I don't want to confuse you. So for now, I'll just make sure to close this, pinch it all closed, and smoothing the clay. So getting a nice smooth surface and thinking about we now have our hollow chamber. And working around the surface of this hollow chamber, okay? And smoothing out any cracks. If you don't take care of it now, this could be problematic for you moving forward because you might think, oh, I'll get to that later. And then, oops, it's later and the clay is dried a little bit and then it's too late. So just going ahead now, working around the surface, smoothing out any cracks. So I don't know if you can see this very well. There are quite a few creases on the surface. So going ahead, turning, and smoothing. Okay, so that looks pretty good. The next thing that I want to think about is which side do I want to now tap on the tabletop for it to be my flat side that I will add the mouthpiece to. So let's get some of my scraps of clay out of the way so they don't stick to our chamber. And so now I will just kind of consider the shape. Is there a side that's already lending itself to being a little bit flatter? As I look over it, it does seem like it's this area. So I think I will just take that area now and I'm going to gently tap it on the tabletop. So you can see I've created a flat area. This is where I'm then going to look at rounding some things off and then gently tapping. Okay, our next piece we want to, or step, is making our mouthpiece. So we want to think about how big is that going to be. And I still have some other little scraps of clay from the clay. So I'm just going to take some of that clay and off. And now let's look at, so you should have your ruler handy. And I'll move that over. And let's think about no more than an inch. In fact, an inch is probably going to be too much. That's okay. We'll start with the inch long mouthpiece, and then you can always cut off the extra. Okay. So I'm trying to go ahead and just keep working this clay, thinking about kind of a shape of a Tootsie Roll. So just going ahead, smoothing, and quickly shaping the clay. And then looking, yep, so already it's at about 1 inch. I can take my plastic knife that was in my kit and cut off the extra bit of clay that's there. I'll go ahead and do that to the other end just to get everything even on both sides. And now I want to think about where will that attach. So as I'm looking, there's a curve. So as we have this curve on our clay, I now want to consider, okay, I might need to cut at a little bit of an angle at this top part so it more easily fits to the side of my clay. Okay, so as we look at it from the top, you see it that way. I'm going to go ahead and roll this on its side so you can see where I cut the angle on the mouthpiece to then have that line up. Okay. And this shape is a little distorted, so I'm just going to manipulate that a little bit. I'll just roll it gently so that even not already in a regular strange. Okay, I lost my place. There we go. So turning this, we'll look again from the side view, and we need this to line up. So I can now begin to drag this clay to attach it into or onto the chamber. So making sure that's joined, gently dragging, etc. Ideally, you should be using your plastic sewing needle, but I took mine to school thinking I was going to do this demo at school, and then I ran out of time. So brought some clay home, and yep, I found some cutlery, plastic cutlery, but I didn't have the plastic sewing needle here. Okay. So now I want to double check, and as I look at this, there's a bit of a curve, so I'm just going to tap this back on the table, making sure everything's lining up, having that all flat. So that part's going to be important for making our whistle and having that make a successful whistle sound. Okay, so as I look at this, now I can determine, okay, well, depending on the design that I'm planning for, do I really need a mouthpiece that's this long? For my design, no. I've decided I want to make an owl, so I won't need something that long. So what I'm going to do is finish kind of pulling this clay in, joining, and once I'm satisfied with that, I'm going to carefully set this back down and cut some of this excess clay off because I no longer need it. So you want to do that very gently, and then going around and smoothing things in. If you find little bits of clay are sticking to your work surface, I would make sure that you're scraping that away, keeping everything clean. Otherwise, all of that is going constantly back onto the surface of your clay and creating problems, just like it just did there from my finger.